So for those of you who have just joined us after closed session, welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Board of Trustees. I am Maria Haug, Board President. I would like to introduce my fellow trustees, Lisa Pelosi, Julio Oguin, Jeannie Kerr, and Forrest Minter. Also joining us this evening is our student representative to the board, Mr. Joe Brody. I would also like to introduce our district staff, Superintendent Dr. Mary Lou Wilson, Chief Academic and Human Resources Officer, Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official, Mrs. Andy Stubbs, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board, Mrs. Erica Madrigal, IT Systems Analyst, Mr. Derek Machado, and providing translation this evening, thank you, Ms. Julie Young and Mr. Paul Huertas. I would like to allow the translators an opportunity to explain how to use the interpreting feature on Zoom.
Muy buenas noches. La reunión de esta noche va a estar traducida al idioma español. Para acceder al idioma español, lo que tienen que hacer es mirar en la parte baja de su pantalla el símbolo del globo terráqueo y hacerle un clic allí. Una vez que haga eso, va a escoger el idioma Spanish, que está en inglés, y inmediatamente va usted a poder escuchar toda esta reunión en el idioma español. Muchas gracias.
We are delighted that you are viewing on Channel 27, Zoom, or our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.stalenaunified.org. In connection with closed session items A and B, the board discussed the items and gave direction. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Participation in debate on any item before the board shall be limited to the board members of the board. Although board members may, At this time, members of the public are entitled to speak on matters not on the agenda. You're requested to state your name and address and keep your comments concise, brief, and limited to 3 minutes. Ms. Madrigal, is there anyone who wishes to make a public comment at this time?
If there are any members of the public who wish to make a public comment on items not on the agenda, please hover towards the bottom of your screen and click your virtual hand. President Haug, there is no public comment on items not on the agenda.
Thank you. On to item 7A. The Board of Trustees will receive a presentation from members of the Give Big Steering Committee on Give Big, the St. Helena social fundraising campaign. I'd like to call on Ms. Danny Brown, Ms. Missy DeVore, and Ms. Anna Chateau. Ladies, are you available?
We are. Is there a way for me to turn my camera on with this format, or is it just better if I speak?
I think that we can all hear you, and
Okay, great.
well, we see pictures of you.
Okay, great. This is a new format for me. I'm used to seeing everybody on the screen. But let me start, and I'll introduce myself. I'm Anna Chateau, and I'm on the Give Big committee. This has been a really different year than the years we've done it in past, but there continues to be a small group of us that meet regularly to do the fundraising for all of our schools. I wanted to start by, I believe all of you know, but you do have a new board member, so I was going to back up and give a little bit of history and overview of what Give Big is. Give Big is a partnership between the St. Helena Public School Foundation and all of the parent groups and the parent teacher groups from all of our 4 schools. We work with all of the principals at the schools and also the school district to have this one fundraiser that's online one time a year where we all get together and ask members of our community, both our school community and the broader community, to support and donate to our public schools. And then that money, whatever we raise, is equally split 5 ways between our 4 schools and also the St. Helena Public School Foundation. The Public School Foundation gets some money so that they can be nimble and flexible and work with teachers on ideas that come up and needs that come up that weren't planned for. They've done even more work recently to become more easy and flexible for teachers. So they've created a new program where you can get up to a $500 grant really easily and quickly. It's just you need to write a paragraph. The request doesn't have to go to the whole board. It'll go to a subcommittee. We really want to make sure that this money gets out to teachers in whatever new way that they can, knowing how stretched they've been this year and how incredibly grateful we are for them showing up and teaching our kids as they have this year. Give Big, the history of Give Big has actually been around in this online fundraising format since 2015. It did average raising about $200,000 a year. Last year we raised $125,000 because the pandemic hit right before we had our fundraiser. I think it is still incredible that our community rallied to raise $125,000. Today I checked right before the meeting and we've raised $65,000. We've set that lower goal because of the year that we've had at $125,000 to reach. I would say before I pass it over to Missy, who's also going to speak a little bit more about how we are using the funds. Overall, Give Big funds allow all our students to have access and experiences that they might not otherwise have. So in this COVID environment, as you know, it's been different. And I would still say the Give Big money is so incredible because of all of the basics that our school district is able to provide and beyond. This year more than ever, I was just so grateful for all of the food that you provided right away for everyone in our community, all of the technology, all of the hotspots, and then once again, after those horrible fires, how much the school district really responded to the moment and got us all back at school despite all of the challenges. We're just so grateful, and the Give Big money has been really important to be able to add all of the really fun extras in whatever way we can on top of that. Missy, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. My name's Missy DeBoer. Can everyone hear me? Great. I am a mother of a 2nd grader and one of the members of the Give Big Committee, and also a member of the St. Helena Primary and Elementary School PTG. And as Anna mentioned, really the goal of Give Big is to support and enhance the educational experiences for our children. And in years past, that has been primarily focused around educational field trips, things that we've been very familiar in this district, such as the trips to Yosemite, the primary and elementary trips to, drama performances, that type of thing, really trying to enhance the educational experience. And this year we had to pivot, just like everyone else, in the COVID environment. So really this year, our focus around spending funds has been to support the education of the children in the specials arena. So as we've had to shorten our school day and things like music and art and specials went away, as those teachers stepped into very important roles, helping to educate the children and serving as classroom teachers. Give Big has jumped in and supported things like virtual drama classes for all of the elementary and primary school kids in partnership with our local business, Cafeteria Kids. We've supported a number of art projects, both around the school and for the community, and then teacher appreciation. So focusing on making sure our teachers know how much we appreciate they're doing for us every day, and partnering with local businesses to help both boost the community when we're doing teacher appreciation, but also bringing those funds back to our community. And as Anna mentioned, we're about 53% to our goal so far this year, but we really need to continue to help and raise money. Our goal is next year to return to, just as all of our goal is, to return to a more normal kind of expenditures that we would do and be able to support some of the field trips again. And really the way to donate is to go to sthelena.givebig.org and donate there. So I think unless unless anybody has any specific questions for me, we can open it up for questions to Anna and myself.
Anna and Missy, would you like the video to be shown?
Yes, if that's possible, I think that'd be great.
Maybe we should show the video first and then take any questions.
What does it mean to give big to your local public schools? And how are your donations spent? Big growth. Big discovery. It's a banana slug right there.
Oh yes, do not step on my little slug friend. How many teeth does it have? 27,000 on its tongue. That hole that you see on the side is a breathing hole.
Big learning.
A boy and a girl in the same body. It's got girl parts and boy parts. And we're gonna keep moving. Would you like to be our leader, Miss June? Please lead on.
Big challenges.
It's a radio. I don't think anyone's played the radio before. Good job.
Big creativity. Big cinema.
3, 2, 1. Oh no, we did it!
Big experience.
When the first bell rings, me and another person go out and do all the orders. And regular coffee goes to Mr. Conlon, which is like our #1 favorite teacher. He already knows.
Mighty fine to see you. It's always good to see you.
Big passion.
Let's spread out the second row in the back. Let's spread you guys out so we can move here.
Big picture. Give Big funds all of these things and so much more. So what does it mean to give big? It means giving back to your community in a big way. To make a donation, please visit givebigsthelena.org. Please give big.
Thank you, everyone from the PTG and the Give Big fundraising team. I'd like to open now to any public comment. Erica, is there any public comment?
Are there any members of the public who care to comment on this agenda item? President Haug, there is no public comment.
Board members, trustees, is there any comments or questions?
I have both. Thank you very much to the Give Big Committee. Great work as always, and I know it's been an interesting year to say the least. So thanks for staying with the event. I was wondering how long after March 24th will donations be accepted?
Yeah, we usually do keep the online available for about a month or so afterwards if there's anything that is trickling in, but really the goal is to march towards that March 24th date.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? I wonder if the Give Big team could let the community know again why we chose March 24th.
Yeah, so March 24th really is the significant day, the founding of St. Helena. And so that was really the, celebrating that anniversary and making that a kind of public, celebration of that date.
I just want to say thank you as well. I know that our entire board is very appreciative of all of the work, and I know our students and all of our staff appreciate it as well. So thank you very much, and thank you for hanging in there this year too. That's it's been a tough year, and we're very appreciative of that as well. Thank you.
Julio?
Hey, thank you to the committee as well for the work you've been doing. I had a question about the grants for the teachers. Has there been a good response to those, and is there any examples of things that they've used $500 grants for?
That we heard today that they haven't been using those yet, so I don't have an example for you right now. But we are ready because teachers have been just getting themselves going with what they have, is what we've heard, is that it's been too much to add something on top. And so I think there have been a few in terms of supplies needed, and often that we asked generally today, and we were told that they could ask for some things, and we always go to the school district first. And sometimes the school district generously says, oh, that's something we can cover, and if not, then we cover it. So the only thing I'm aware of right now would have been supplies for recess, but there have not been a lot of grants yet. And the money is there available for anybody who wants it, any teachers.
Thank you.
Lisa?
One more question you just made me think of with that grant question is, will there be summer grants available as well for the students to participate, which will probably still look virtually, but maybe, other kind of camps, robotic camps and performing arts camps as there was done in the past?
I will get back to you on that to confirm, but yes. I mean, I would say the foundation has the money, and they're there set up year round, as long as it's the normal process for how in the past, the grants I know about the teachers apply for. So as long as the teachers can apply to get it, yes, the money is there and available.
Thank you.
Anything else? And just for anyone who's watching, I think that any amount is really accepted, and you can be generous with any multiples of 24. So it can be, I know that there have been elementary and primary school children that have donated $2.40. I know that some families donate $24, some families donate $240, and it all goes to a good place, and it all is really welcome and accepted by the school and by the community, and especially by our students. So thank you for all the work that you're doing, PTG and the Give Big team. On to item 7B. We have our presentation from the Student School Board Representative, Joe Brody.
Good evening, board members, district staff, and our wonderful site principals who have joined us today in person. It is always exciting to have all of you here. This is the Student Representative Report for the month of March, and as we get the presentation open and looking at that second slide, in my most recent meeting with Dr. Wilson, I was reminded that after tonight's regularly scheduled board meeting, I will be only seeing the board twice more for regularly scheduled board meetings, the meeting in April and the meeting in May, as the June meeting is after graduation. So I just have a quick timeline up here on this first informational slide to update the board on the work that I will be doing before the end of my term. On the top half, you will see our board meetings, and on the bottom half is some work that I will be doing in between. Of course, we have March 11th, tonight's meeting, just updating all of you on some work that we'll be doing. And then moving on to that next little offshoot, on March 31st, I will be presenting a draft State Seal of Civic Engagement resolution to the Equity, Culture, and Climate Subcommittee. I have presented to the board on the State Seal before. This is just continuing that work. And I would just like to clarify to the board that this would just be a resolution reaffirming the State Seal. This would not be the finished criteria. Of course, working with Mr. Cinto, we want to give that criteria all of the attention that it deserves. And should this take a little longer than June, I will leave very detailed notes for whoever fills this seat when I am gone. And then looking to the April 15th meeting, should the draft resolution be approved by the Equity, Culture, and Climate Subcommittee, it would come to all of you for potential approval. After that, because the good work never stops, in mid-April, Dr. Wilson and I will be meeting with the site principals to begin building the Green Initiative report. This will be reflecting the how the sites have been addressing our updated Green Initiative. And then moving to May, that report will be given, and then there is potential for another Pride Month resolution to be brought to the board. We're still workshopping all of that. And then a little asterisk that's not on the slide, we'll be also working. Last year, we changed the administrative regulations for our flag code. So should our student body wish to pursue it, students will have up until 30 days before the month of March to submit a flag request to fly the pride flag again here at the district office. So that's just a really brief timeline for some of the great work that I'll be doing and working with our principals to do. Moving on to this next slide, two events that I really wanted to highlight. It's been almost a year since our school closure last March. It has been quite a year, as I'm sure all of us are well aware of. And luckily, here in St. Helena, and we all know this, we have some pretty amazing resources and some pretty great students and staff. So here on the left side of the slide, I have a few pictures for a very well-received book giveaway that we've been doing here at the high school. We had stacks and stacks of books that have been taken out of the circulation here at our library, our hub on campus. And of course, not wanting to put anything to waste, we wanted to put them out to the students. So we've had books out for the past 2 days now and have had a very, very steady flow of students going in the mornings, during break, and after school, taking whatever books they'd like, no questions asked. Therefore, our students to be enriching themselves. What's not pictured is students furiously sanitizing their hands after they've stepped away. Of course, there were a lot of touch points, so we had some sanitizer bottles out for students that were definitely taken advantage of. And then on the right side, you'll see two very full whiteboards. The leadership class had the pleasure of welcoming Mr. Heller back into the classroom. He had a glowing reception, I would say, as he entered the classroom. It is always a pleasure. And we focused on 3 areas of student engagement, looking at the mental health services and the academic counseling services we provide here at the high school, college and career, extending the programs that we have here at the high school, bolstering them, and possibly bringing them to our RLS. And also just general, strengths and weaknesses of the past year, because of course, it's been crazy, and hopefully we'll never have to experience a year like this again. But it was really exciting to see our students engaging at a level that I don't think I've seen them engaging at in the past year. There is something to just having students in the classroom, being able to engage with each other, and really seeing them take advantage of the wonderful services that we have here. We had students bring up points that, I've never even considered. And so it's really exciting to see that our district staff is engaging with our students and really listening to them. It seems very simple, but it really matters to our students to have Mr. Heller come in, or any district official, and really listen to them, because that's what it was. It was very conversational. We're always worried that it's just going to be one person talking, but it's a group effort. And I think Mr. Heller, I want to thank him for coming in and giving his time to our students, because we really do benefit. It really is beneficial to them. And of course, you can see 2 whiteboards full of notes and suggestions and ideas and comments and questions. So we've really created a strong culture for our students to engage with all of our staff. And then a brief offshoot of that, because I know that it is agendized later in the meeting, but we also had a great number of students attend our district town hall, which is very exciting. I myself was in a breakout room with Mr. Cinto, which we always have a great time. But it's just exciting to see our students engaging with each other and with our district staff for the better of our whole district. And while this was a very brief report, if we could move on to the next slide, are there any questions or comments? I'm more than happy to review the timeline again with all of you.
Erica, is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on Mr. Brody's presentation?
Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this agenda item? President Haug, there is no public comment.
Trustees, do you have any questions or comments?
I'd like to say, as always, thank you so very much. And I think that the book giveaway, that's a great idea. That's something that we should continue.
Yeah,
That's excellent.
so thank you to one Miss Susan Swan, our wonderful librarian and media specialist here at the high school.
Maria, I was just
Lisa?
also to compliment you on the work of the Pride Month resolution, moving that forward and taking that another step. So congratulations on doing that as well. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
On to item 8A, board member reports. I'd like to call on Trustee Kerr.
Thank you very much. Good evening. So when you were talking about the students and their engagement things, I wrote it down because that's exactly when I went into the classrooms. That's exactly what I was seeing at RLS. I was in for a couple of hours, different classrooms on March 4th with Dr. Wilson and Corinne Cox, and as we all know, all of our employees doing an exceptional job. Each classroom I went out to, I would just look at Dr. Wilson. I say, it's amazing how creative the teaching is, and I know that there's a lot of different ways I could say this, but it's amazing. They're just the thinking out of the box is just beyond belief. It's spectacular. I did have a couple of pictures. I had to follow my fellow trustees and get some pictures. Otherwise, I don't know if I would be able to talk to Julio again. So, so I was we went into Ms. Shearer's class. She's a 6th grade math teacher. And so that the students and Ms. Shearer were talking about the distributed property and algebraic expressions. And what I thought was so pretty fascinating about it is in one of the other pictures is the students have like a what is it when you can write on it and then erase it. The whiteboard? It's not even a whiteboard. It's kind of like where you can erase. It's like a whiteboard type of thing, but they had the distributive property kind of circles underneath it and things, and you can see it on the. And so as Ms. Shearer was talking about this, they were distributing the different X, Y's and things into the circles. And so she was doing it up on the projector, and then they were doing it also at their desk. And they were all very, very, very much engaged in it and asking a lot of questions about it. And she was giving a lot of opportunity for them to provide the answers. And it was kind of that thing that we always talk about math is where it's just like, it's okay if you have the wrong answer. And that was expressed many times is don't worry if it's wrong. We keep going even if it's not the correct answer. And it was actually pretty joyous when they got to the conclusion, to the answer of the problem too. Everyone was very, very pleased. So that I thought was really good. And then we were also in Mr. Pham's class, and he was working at thermal energy solutions. And so each one of the students on their iPad or Chromebook were looking at different examples of thermal solutions. And I was pretty amazed. I didn't even know what that was. So I had to actually write it down as far as what are they doing. So that was very engaging to them as well. And Mr. Pham was asking them all sorts of questions about it. And then when we were in Miss Kurtz's class, there was, she is the English teacher, and she actually had everyone on. She had her distance learners, and she had several distance learners, and then but the rest of the class she put on the camera as well. So everyone was working kind of as a distance learner, and they were all talking about the different parts of a novel and things. And so everyone was included in the conversation. As you can see, the students had their headphones on as well. So it was an in-class type of a lesson, but everyone was kind of online together. And so it was pretty unique, actually. And it was very well organized. And it was one of those times when I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even think that you could do something like this. So anyway, after that big to-do, I just wanted to say that it was a great visit. I do want to give a shout out to Mr. Pauls and Miss Vicky for their after-school sports clinic that they started. I believe it's soccer right now that they're doing. And today, when I went into the RLS today, I went and had a site visit with Mr. Farrell, and they had about 30 students participating in soccer. So it's a lot of students. This is after school, and the students are loving it just because they get to, the feeling of sports and being as a team. Today's visit with Mr. Farrell, it was an after hours visit, and we were able to go into the different teachers' classrooms and just talk with them informally, kind of questions like, how's it going? What's the challenges? And overall, it seems as though our employees are very, very happy to be back, and they're very happy to have their students back in the classroom. And it doesn't seem to me as if that there are very many distance learners at RLS at this point. So it seems like everyone is very happy being back. Finally, I do want to do another shout out to all of our food service workers. As we know, they are doing an amazing job, and they have been since March. Just like all of our employees, they're in there and they're doing it, and they're just trying to make it better and better for our students at all times. So I'm so appreciative, and I'm so grateful for all of the amazing work of all of our employees, and I want to thank them very much at this point. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jeannie, for that report. It's really good to hear. I'd like to move on to the subcommittee reports. First of all, the LCAP steering town hall. I believe Jeannie and Lisa, you were both reporters on that. So would either of you like to report out on that?
I actually did not end up being a recorder. And I don't know if you want to fold this into the other agenda item rather than giving a report right now. We can add into that.
That probably makes sense, and I'm getting nods around. So that's and then we met yesterday. So Jeannie, I think that most everything we spoke about is going to be covered later in the meeting as well.
I would agree with that.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So everything that was covered in the meeting today will be presented later today by meeting yesterday will be presented later this evening by Mrs. Stubbs.
Yeah, but what I do want to just comment that there was it was well attended, which was great. Lots of good questions. Andy did do, there was some questions from a prior meeting that she went over, and one of those was kind of the they wanted more information about STRS and PERS, so she was able to provide that and to give kind of how the rates have increased through time and things, just so that there was a more understanding of what exactly STRS and PERS were. And then she also shared with them the information that we received from our study session as well.
Yes, and we did have a number of parents on that committee, which is really good to see. And I'd like to remind all of our viewers that if any parent or community member is interested in joining a subcommittee, they just have to let the administration know. So that is all of our subcommittee reports for today. And I'd like to now call on Mr. Brandon Farrell, item 8C. That would be the SHTA report.
President Haug, you'll see that Mr. Farrell submitted a written report for this evening's board meeting.
I do see that. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Brandon. And then we also have a written report for the CSCA. On to item 8E. Dr. Wilson, I'd like to call on you for your superintendent's report.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, members of the community. It's nice to have our principals in the room. Thank you, Joe, for acknowledging them with us. Wanted to remind our community that our transitional kindergarten and kindergarten registration is now open for the 2021-22 school year. Remember, it's critically important that we know the enrollment numbers as we move into planning for the new school year. So we do ask parents who reside in our attendance area to stop by the primary school or go online and start that registration process as soon as possible. As I have been each month, I do want to review with you the District of Choice caps and our current enrollment. Ms. Madrigal is going to put a chart, I believe, up on the screen for us to take a look at. And she's going to make it a little bit bigger so that I can see it. Okay. So what you can see here is on the left-hand side, those are the enrollment caps that I recommended in December, and the governing board approved the caps. And you'll note that those caps are lower than years past, and that is due to the pandemic and the uncertainty as far as class sizes and facilities and numbers of teachers that we have available to provide services. The right-hand column is a snapshot today of projected enrollment. And so we take our current enrollment for each grade level and we roll it up to the next grade level. So you can see now that 3 of our community members have registered their transitional kindergartner, and we now have 19 kindergartners registered already, which is great to see. So that shows you that at this point in time, if it were May 15th and the date was May 15th and the numbers were as they are, then we would have 7 spots available in transitional K for District of Choice enrollment. So we will take that May 15th snapshot later in the school year to ultimately determine if we are able to invite District of Choice families based on their lottery number into the school district. And then in addition, I also wanted to note that in April, we are transitioning to full in-person board meetings. We are in the red tier, and that does allow for 25% capacity within this building, in this room. And so we were in full in-person meetings earlier in the school year prior to going into the purple tier. And you'll remember that members of the community that wanted to participate needed only to make a reservation. So we'll have a certain number of seats and they'll make a reservation with Ms. Madrigal to allow them to participate in the meeting live if they want to. Very excited to move in that direction as we are in orange and continuing to move into even a better place as a county and a state. And then I'm sure you all know this. I know our students do, and I think our teachers and employees know as well. We do have spring break coming up. That's going to be April 5th through April 9th. And that will be no school for a week for students and teachers. So enjoy that time away. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Next, I'd like to commend and thank our principals for all of their written reports. They are all with us here tonight, as Joe said. You stole my thunder, Joe. I was going to introduce them before their reports came up. Thank you for all of your reports, and they're really, I know that it takes a lot of time to try to make everything concise, but get a lot of information out. And I really encourage all of our community members to read these written reports. It's a really great snapshot of what's going on in every school each month. And we also want to highlight all of the students of the month that have been listed in those reports. Sometimes they are in some schools and sometimes they are in others, but we always want to recognize our students as well. So thank you, principals. Next, moving on to item 9, the consent agenda. So this contains routine items judged to be as appropriate to be acted upon in one motion. If a board member requests that an item be removed from the consent agenda item, will be considered under discussion or action items. Ms. Madrigal, is there anyone present via Zoom who wishes to comment on this agenda item, or were there any written comments to this agenda item?
There were no written comments submitted for this agenda item. Are there any members participating via Zoom who wish to comment on the consent agenda items A through H? President Howe, there's no public comment on this item.
Trustees, are there any comments or questions or any items that need to be pulled?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item 10A, student learning and achievement. We have an update on in-person instruction. I'd like to call on Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
When we started the update on in-person instruction presentations, we were going into the high teens and the 20s of slides because we had so many protocols and information to share with you in the community. I'm pleased to share with you that this presentation keeps getting shorter and shorter. Next slide, please. With regards to the public health, county public health, I think all of you know that positive case counts in our county and within the city of St. Helena continue to be on the decline. Hospitalization is on the decline. The county as a whole is very stable. We did move into the red tier on March 5th, and we could be in the orange tier as soon as March 22nd, and if not the 22nd, then the end of the month. And that's just again, watching the data and public health analysis and state analysis. We did receive updated California public health guidance. Ms. Stubbs did a deep analysis of that guidance, and she and Joe Perez are in the middle of a mid-year compliance check. I think she's going to talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. And that new guidance is now ready for publishing and will be posted on our district website as well as the county office website in the very near future. And then the agreement was made between Governor Newsom and legislature, which means that there's the potential for application for additional dollars to support in-person education. Whether you are in person already or not, you still have access to those dollars. And so Ms. Stubbs is working with Josh Schultz from the county to analyze and determine that application process so we can look at that and determine our next steps. Mr. Heller?
Yes, just does this work? Yep. Okay, good. So with regards to the vaccinations, this slide was developed before. I have good news that those 12 that were on the waiting list have been taken care of. So that 95% of our employees that are vaccinated has probably increased. I don't have the exact number, but it's well over 95%. We do have a few employees that are waiting or declined the opportunity. So that's really a strong number for all of our staff. And again, we want to thank the St. Helena Hospital Foundation and Glenn Newhart for prioritizing our employees. In looking at staffing for next year, we continue to receive letters of retirement, letters of resignation, and we are taking a look at our staffing for the upcoming school year. And with that, we're developing two different models for reopening in August of 2021. One that currently looks like the model that we're in, and one that looks like the opening of school that occurred in August of 2019, where it's a traditional staffing model. We have to prepare for both. The state of California right now is focused on reopening school districts throughout the state. We've had the luxury of being open since November, and everybody else is focusing on their reopening efforts right now. So the guidance and direction for what August might look like is still unclear. And so we anticipate in the next 2 months or so we'll begin working on what that actually looks like. So the question may come up in the community, are we going to be back to full school? Are we going to be back to a full schedule? And that is still kind of an unknown depending on public health guidance and direction from the state of California. And with that, so that also impacts summer school, because summer school is prior to August. It starts in June. And so we're still working with each site to determine what the best course of action is to help support our students from each of those individual sites. And so Mary Allen, Director of Curriculum Instruction, and I will provide a better detailed report next month with some projections and offerings. So I'm going to deflect that until next month. Ms. Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Hiller. Going to the business operations update, the revenue mentioned in the slide here is just one of a few different pots of funding related to COVID-19 that I'll be talking about later this evening with the second interim report. With regard to transportation, as Dr. Wilson mentioned, we have been looking at the most recent guidelines and ensuring that we're compliant in all regards, including our buses. And so one of the things that we have done in our buses is swapped out the use of disinfectant products with cleaning products to support the health of our youth. And then also drivers have been reminded to keep at least 2 windows fully open to support ventilation. And then Dr. Wilson also mentioned the mid-year inspections. And I did want to take this opportunity to really thank our school principals and our site staff, because they've been working really hard to sustain compliance with COVID-19 requirements over these months. And in preparation for their site inspections, they have provided their staff with refresher courses on how to use PPE and how to access additional materials and so forth. And the teachers in turn have been providing reminder trainings for students about hand sanitizing and how to use face coverings properly. So just a big thank you to the sites. We'll be concluding those mid-year inspections at the end of next week.
Thank you, Ms. Stubbs. And so as a district, we will continue to monitor and adhere to all of the public health guidance. We'll continue with our in-person instruction with the schedule that we have and remain in that schedule through the year. And would be happy to answer any questions or clarify any information for you at this time.
Ms. Madrigal, is there any public comment on this agenda item, or was there any written public comment submitted for this agenda item?
There was no written public comment submitted on this agenda item. Do any members of the public care to comment on this item? If so, please hover down towards the bottom of your screen and raise your virtual hand. President Howe, there is no public comment on this agenda item.
Trustees, comments or questions?
I don't have anything this evening.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I had a question just in regards to the HR, the district receiving the 3 official letters of retirement, which first off, I wanted to just say thank you to those staff that are retiring. I was just curious if you could kind of go over the process and time frame as far as looking to fill those positions.
Sure. We staggered those openings so they all don't occur at one time. And so several of those positions are currently posted. And so the timeline for that is to allow the posting period for a period of 2 to 3 weeks, in some cases 4 weeks. And then we will have a paper screening process and then conduct interviews probably in early April for most of those positions.
Just a question, and I know you touched on it and you don't really have an answer at this point, but I do want to just circle back on the reopening in August 2021. So obviously a district such as ourselves that was able to open successfully and stay open, the state is not considering any kind of adjustments to the openings if you've already successfully managed to be open and stay open versus those schools that may just get underway between now and mid-April, who will only maybe be in school for 6 weeks, and so they don't know. I guess what I'm not being very clear, I realize that, but what I'm trying to get to is, would there be any delineation for those schools who have successfully proven that they are able to perhaps resume a full schedule come August? Is that a better question?
Well, it's a fair question. We don't have that crystal ball.
Okay.
So what I can say, though, is if you think historically back to the December month when our district, our county went into the purple tier, although we were in purple, because we were already open, we were able to stay open. A district that was in purple and not open could not open. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of delineation. The guidance that will drive our schedule will be all about the distance in the classrooms, the number of students that we can have in each classroom. The size is going to be a really important aspect. The cohort model, the stable cohort model at the primary and the elementary school, where currently right now our teachers and students stay together for just about the entire time that they are in school. Each cohort has recess together in a quadrant of the playground. So there isn't any mixing right now with the primary and the elementary. And that's largely due to the fact that the social distancing for little ones is more challenging. So those are some of the parameters, the guidance that we're looking for from the state public health department to help us know how can we create what can we do? And, as Mr. Heller said, our goal is to go back to, 2019 and have a regular, what we know of as a regular school day. And we'll plan accordingly. We also have to be prepared because, staffing it to the lower class size and the stable cohort is very different.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Heller, do you want to add anything more?
That captures the dilemma.
So I know that I have one question regarding summer school. I know that it's just starting to get discussed. So we are looking at probably a summer school program that is targeted towards learning loss. Is that correct?
I would say that's very accurate. The principals and their leadership teams have really worked to think about the programs and identify students that would benefit from continuing on. And we have a couple different models, but some of them would be a continuance of this school year, and some of them would be an early back preparation for the start of the next school year. So again, there's a lot of it's up in the air at this point, and so we'll hopefully have better direction in a sense for you in April.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Okay. Thank you for our presenters. Next, we're moving on to item 10B, which is the Town Hall Community Forum and Reflections. So I would like to call on Mr. Christopher Heller.
Yes. So last Wednesday, March 2nd, the district conducted a town hall to receive on Zoom to receive feedback on 5 different prompts that we developed to help better inform the development of the LCAP. 52 administrators, teachers, parents, students, and community members attended this event. And during the town hall, we had an opportunity to debrief after each question and shared things we called ahas, or which were items that we learned and wanted to share at the end of the meeting. But to continue the conversation tonight, I'd like to open the floor for the board and the community to provide any additional thoughts, reflections, or next step for the district staff to consider from the town hall in our LCAP development. So I would turn it back over to you, President Haug, to conduct some reflections.
So first of all, I would like to ask Ms. Madrigal, is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment, or was there any public comment submitted on this agenda item?
Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this agenda item? If so, please raise your virtual hand now. President Haug, there's currently no public comment, and there were no public comments submitted on this agenda item.
Thank you. Trustees, any feedback or comments on the Town Hall Community Forum?
Yeah, you know, I thought it was really good. I was a scribe, so I was busy. I was doing a lot of writing, that's for sure. I thought that the format for the Zoom format was wonderful, and I know that as a LCAP steering committee member, we discussed it for a long period of time as far as, you know, what is it going to look like and how is it going to work, and it worked. I mean, it was really the breakout rooms was great. I think that those that were participating were very open and honest with their thoughts, and I really enjoyed hearing what they had to say, and I'm looking forward to seeing the accumulation of all of the information that we received.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think that, I think the virtual format, proved to be not as successful with the turnout that we would have normally had in person. That was obvious. So that, that's because the one we had in person was so great because there was just so many attendees and so many voices. I loved having the student voice. I had a student in the group that I was in. Miss Allen facilitated our group. I think the one thing that always becomes evident to me is that people have a lot to say and there's not necessarily enough time, and you can't control that necessarily, but I'm just wonder if there's a way to in the future not have a 1 and then an A and a B, to somehow maybe just consolidate it a little bit so that everybody is not rushed or they're feeling like they get cut off. And again, it's the virtual format too that didn't help the situation, obviously. I think that would be my only kind of constructive, concern to give back. But there were a lot of themes that ran through from the group that I noticed that it was about communication and engagement, but there was a lot of gratitude. There was definitely a lot of gratitude for our teachers for being open and being back in school. For the services that we're able to offer our students as well and to families, and just comments on what kind of communication would help our families and our students a little bit more. So once again, I find them very valuable, and I appreciate everybody's time that they put together in putting that together. So thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment as far as the Zoom platform. I mean, it's as good as it can get, and obviously the last town hall that we had was excellent, just as far as the representation and having a diverse group of parents, students, all at the table and expressing themselves. So, but I'd say for the most part, even within the small group in this setting, it was intimate, and you were able to connect with those parents and the staff, and I just thought it was a great way to obviously share your ideas as a whole. I am hoping that, and I think I've already seen the surveys online on the website, but I'm really hoping that the community is able to participate through this critical process. I think it's very important to get equal representation to reflect of what our student makeup looks like. And so I think it's important that our district, makes it a point to reach out to those families. So I know that the surveys are on the website, but I'm thinking, or kind of just something that came as a thought was kind of like the via text surveys that were sent out. I think that would be a great way to hopefully get some parents to respond, or even incorporating our students and having them take home a paper copy and having their parents fill it out. I know that that's worked in the past with my kids, and they brought home, surveys or things to fill out, and it seems to be more effective. So again, I just want to re-emphasize that it's important just get that equal reflection in our, especially for the LCAP, and we may not have this opportunity for another 3 years. So I think it's important to get the equal voice there. So, but other than that, like I said, I did enjoy listening to the students and the small group that we were in. I enjoyed the conversation. I thought it was very meaningful.
Forrest?
Yeah, I felt like it was a really good opportunity to connect with community members. I would have loved to have had more time for each question because it seemed like every time we started to get really into the question, we ran out of time. One important thing that came up a lot during the discussion was that we could do better at making sure we had more engagement in the meetings, the monthly meetings. So I just thought it was an important thing to bring up, considering we tend to have low viewership on the Zoom link. So I thought it would be important to pass that along to the board.
President Haug, if I could remind the community and board members that, as Trustee Olguin did mention, the questions are currently posted on the district website in both Spanish and English, and we have had some response to that, and we welcome more response. That will stay open through Sunday evening, I believe, Mr. Heller?
Yes.
Yes. And in addition, our community liaison has been reaching out to many of our families requesting that they participate. And all of those who reserved a spot in the town hall and for some reason were not able to attend received an email request from Ms. Madrigal to also participate. Okay. So we are doing a great amount of outreach to gather as many voices as we can.
So I'll just comment on our group as well, that Joe, I'll let you talk as well. But
no worries.
I wanted to actually point out a note of thanks to our high school leadership class who are all in attendance. I know that it's not always easy to take time out of all of your homework, and I really appreciate, it was great to have the student voice. We had 2 students in our group. It was really important to hear the student voice. Like the rest of you have already said, one of the themes that came up in our group was that there was a much more representative attendance for the town hall that was held 2 years ago with in the Native Sons building, where we had food, where we sat down. And it was a really great community event. And this was good, but it was just, I think if we compare the 2 formats, we see which is more representative of our district. And I'm looking forward to the time when our current situation is behind us and we can move back to a format that worked really well for all of us. And Joe, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I just really appreciated the level of student engagement we had, and in connecting with students after the meeting, they understood how important the subject matter was, but they really appreciated how conversational each subgroup or breakout room was. And then also, I think one important thing to point out was how beneficial it was to meet as a breakout room and then return back to the main room after every question, because in hearing the points brought up in the different breakout rooms, my group found ourselves kind of just 30 seconds ruminating on those before we started the next question, and it added to our understanding and brought actually some really interesting points up. And it just, I think, was a really great experience. I do agree with the trustees who have talked about the time constraints for each question, but I do understand that no one really wants to sit in front of their computer screen for any longer than they have to. But I do think that going forward, the time constraints for the questions is something to be considered.
Trustee Haug, I have another thought that I've been thinking about, is just as far as possibly sharing the questions with our parent groups, our parent-teacher groups, and the foundation. So just like different committees, like the ELAC and things. Is that something that we could possibly? I mean, I don't know how that would work.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, so because they're already like a group. So say like the RLS parent group comes together, maybe there's a representative that shares the questions with that group there, where they're able to do it because you already have that audience right there.
If the timing works such that we can collect that information and get it to the analysis, absolutely. We do need for our consultant Babs Kavanaugh to create a report so that it can, support the work of the LCAP. So absolutely, and again, it is available right now on the district website for anyone.
Yeah, exactly. Great, thank you.
I just had three points to make. One was a big shout out to Miss Erica Madrigal, who very seamlessly put us in breakout rooms and put us back in. That worked out great. So kudos on that. And secondly, I wasn't aware we were going to have as many students as we did, and I truly thought it was great. The student that was in our group did comment a couple of times that she felt those questions like she couldn't answer them because she wasn't a parent. So if we have student voice in there, maybe there is a question that's more directed towards a student versus just the parent. And then my third point, was for you, Trustee Minter, when you said that the comment was about low engagement at monthly meetings, was that by community engagement? I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, community engagement. Not very many questions on agenda items, low viewership, things like that.
I think if we look back, though, Trustee Minter, if you go to certain board meetings, we have very high engagement. So it really depends on what's going on in the district. If parents are happy, they don't really have concerns to voice during meetings. And then we also have no idea of the viewership on our local television channel, which is through cable TV. So a lot of families do watch that way, and we have no access to that viewership number. On to item 10C. We have the presentation on the development of the SHUSD transition program for the 2021-2022 school year. And I'm really happy to call on Mr. Nick Joy.
I'm first.
Mr. Heller first, please.
Oh, is it Mr. Heller? It is Mr. Heller.
It's all right. I know Nick's excited, and
okay.
Actually, we all are, and I'll tell you that a little bit in the backstory here. So tonight we're going to give you a little update on the transition program that our district is currently working on. And on the next slide, you'll see the board may recall that prior to the pandemic, our district and Calistoga Joint Unified School District were working on a joint partnership to develop this particular program. And we've had several meetings, and we got to a certain point, and then had to stop, obviously, with the pandemic. So it kind of derailed a lot of our progress. But the goal of this program is to serve our 18 to 22-year-old students in a special day class students in a transition to a work-infused environment with life skills and community partnerships as kind of the cornerstone. And so as we came back to school, we began having these conversations informally, me with Principal Cinto with Nick, me with Mary Allen, and then we all got together and said, is there anything we can just do as our district to continue the work? And Nick has been super pivotal in this process, I got to say, and he's served our district on the countywide transition team for numerous years, and he's currently actually working in his doctorate in this particular field. So he has a passion, and we've tapped into that passion, and he's been just nothing short of amazing in this process. So truly, his enthusiasm is why we're here tonight talking about the next steps. And so I'll turn the next couple slides over to Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. Sure. Good evening, board members, Dr. Wilson, members of the community. My name is Nick Joy. I'm a speech-language pathologist for the school district, but I'm also here as a team member for our district's special education programming, and to share the progress that we have, like you said, in creating and implementing this post-secondary adult transition program for our students with special needs. And it's designed to assist in the transition from school to adult life. So these emerging issues allow us to develop action plans. And the development of a new post-secondary adult transition program will provide our students with the opportunity to develop these transition skills. This program will also be compliant with IDEA, which is the Individual with Disabilities Education Act. And these special education laws for our young adults, they'll be learning and working in a least restrictive environment with peers their age. We'll also be partnering, like Mr. Heller said, with Calistoga Unified School District. And we're looking at a projected around 5 to 10 students annually, with a hope to have a sound vision, viable goals, relevant objectives for our organization. There's a need to be connected to the community that we serve. So one purpose of this program is to teach students to transfer their learned skills into new environments. This program will address the following instructional areas. As you see on the board: independent living, vocational and employment, social, leisure, recreation, and lifelong learning opportunities. So strategic thinking begins with establishing this foundational framework, and it includes making good judgments, allocating the appropriate resources, and prioritizing goals. So developing a partnership is key to improving and expanding our special education programming through school and community partnerships. So these partnerships are local partnerships. They help provide employment opportunities for our students with special needs. And the community involvement aids in helping our schools develop workers. As a community, we want to feel trusted, needed, and valued. So having this vision is supported by all of our stakeholders, motivates and inspires us by allowing us to dream and knowing we're making a difference for others. With this program, after completing high school, some students may need help making these transition goals. So the adult transition program, because it's community-based, they'll help them with their transition planning, reaching these goals. The students will apply their knowledge and skills from high school into the community. And it's based, and we've been lucky enough to work with the Boys and Girls Club. So that'll be the home base off the high school campus with peers their age, walking, working in the community. One goal for our students is to realize their individual potential through independence. Students practice, and on the next slide you'll see within the Boys and Girls Club, they'll be able to practice different skills such as money management, food preparation, creating budgets, banking, the travel skills needed to navigate their community. This is a work-based program for students to practice the skills they'll need in adulthood. And one focus will be on becoming productive citizens with employability skills. So partnering with our community businesses and organizations, as well as the Department of Rehabilitation and other outside agencies, will help develop these skills. Now, we recognize that there will be questions, and currently we are working. We've made phone calls, outreach, we've had actual tangible packets that we're handing out, as well as surveys to gather, because we want to get our stakeholders, we want to gather everyone together. So we're beginning with our families. And then we will bring in more people and more so that it truly becomes a community, and that's the vision, is a community program for our students. And so you'll see on one of the last steps is a little chart of what we're working on. So right now we're gathering the input, looking, and then we'll be presenting for the families on site of our vision, and then gathering together, developing, creating the site, sharing the program, developing a budget for the program to support, and then establishing more community partnerships, and then looking into the different positions. So the Adult Transition Program is a collaborative effort between everybody, between the students, parents, the school district, the adult service providers, the community members, businesses, organizations. It's a place to empower the students with person-centered planning and to be contributing members of our community. So thank you. Any questions?
If I could, real quick, Erica, could you please back up to that last slide, the timeline? You could see in the next steps, there's still work that needs to be done, but we wanted to share with the governing board where we are and what we're looking at in terms of a vision to open this program in August of 2021. Everything pending, of course, but with that idea, one of the costs, or one of the considerations, is the cost of the program, and we believe that we can manage this program internally with no additional staffing costs at this time. The only costs that we might incur are just some general startup costs with supplies and things like that and such. So I believe my good partner, Ms. Stubbs, is already projected budgeting for a small amount for that program to begin. So in terms of the sustainability over time, we believe we can make this work with our current staffing. So I know that's a big question and a big concern in terms of ongoing costs to the district. So with that closure, we'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Ms. Madrigal, is there any public comment, or was there any public comment submitted on this agenda item?
Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this agenda item? President Howe, there is currently no public comment, and no public comments were submitted on this agenda item.
Board of Trustees, comments or questions?
First of all, thank you so very much for being here this evening and for letting us know the good news about it moving forward and things. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Just a quick question. And so our students, I'm just trying to think of kind of the scenario. So as one of our students would graduate from the high school, and then do they automatically did they go into this transition program then? Or is that kind of the next step? That's
a great question. For students who are on a certificate of completion program, for students with more of our severe needs with special education, you would say like moderate to severe disabilities, they would be part of this program with the adult transition program.
So it's more the kind of the moderate to severe is kind of the group then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Mr. Joy, when I saw this on the agenda, I will have to say that I definitely had a leap in my heart about it, because I do know that this is your heart and your head. This is something you're very committed to. So thank you very much for all your work on that. It sounds amazing. I really give you all our support for getting this off the ground in August. I think one question financially, would costs be shared then with Calistoga? I'm assuming since it's a partnership, but I wanted to clarify that.
We would establish an MOU with them with a annual cost that Ms. Stubbs develops and they sign and participate in, and the enrollment in projected out years in the next 5 years is there's a period of time where we have more students, then there's a period of time where they have more students, so it kind of fluctuates throughout the years. So it really is going to be a shared program, but in thinking about our work as a joint partnership, there was a lot of logistics that we needed to work out. Who was going to evaluate the teacher, who would be the point person for the program and such, and so we just kind of felt that waiting another year wasn't going to be in the best interest of our students, so we needed to just take the lead, and they were agreeable to just buying into our program, so it worked out.
And do we know at this point, does this look like a 5-day a week? Is this a Monday through Friday program for the 18 to 22-year-olds?
That's a great question. We're still designing it.
Okay.
And looking at what it would be like.
Okay.
So as a team, and that's what we're waiting for is to hear the input from the families.
Okay,
as well,
great.
Looking at what barriers there are, but.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Julio?
Sure. Thank you for sharing in your presentation. Just kind of, I know it's kind of down the line, but is there a number of businesses that you guys are looking at, and then also what kind of industries would you be looking to or do you think would most benefit our students?
Great question. Yeah, and we work with the Department of Rehabilitation, but we have such a wonderful community. In the past, we've worked with a lot of businesses such as like Central Valley, but it would be going out and sort of going out, bringing in a lot of the businesses as well, and working with the families and seeing what is out there, especially within the businesses that are walkable right in downtown also.
So you said that the Boys and Girls Club would be the kind of the center of operations, and I was wondering whether that would be the St. Helena one or the Calistoga one, since it's a joint operation.
Thank you. This would be the St. Helena Boys and Girls Club.
Any more questions?
Quick clarifying question. You said 5 to 10 students annually. Is that in each district or total?
Total. Total in the program, yes.
Okay. Thanks.
And then my question is, because the cafe program at the high school has been so popular, would this mean that high school age students would continue that program, and that program would still be in place? Is that correct?
That's a good question. It would all be looked in. We would look into the design, and once we know sort of the schedule, working with whoever would be teaching as well, and looking at their schedules and their interests as well.
Any further questions or comments?
One more that just occurred to me. Do the students, are they obligated to stay all 4 years, or is it they could be there for 1 year? Can they be there for 2 years?
No, they're not obligated. We have, per special education law, 18 to 22,
Right.
that is part that we as a school district can provide this programming for them.
Okay, great.
So it looks like we can move on.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank
much.
you for the
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
So on to item 10D. This will be the district safety plan, and I'd like to call in Mrs. Mary Allen. She's here in person.
I know it actually feels kind of weird to be here and not be a talking head. So, good evening, everybody. It's nice to be here tonight. So, what I'm bringing up is the comprehensive safety plans that we have at each one of our school sites. It's coming back around. It came up to you in November for review. Each year, the school sites are responsible for updating their comprehensive safety plan in October. Comes up to review and then final approval in March. It's okay if we're a couple of days past March 1st, as we are based on the board meeting, but it comes up for final approval in March from the board members. That's what I'm doing. The comprehensive safety plan incorporates and encompasses child abuse, natural disasters, first aid, threat assessment, man-made disasters, a variety of areas responding to everything safety related and some health related. This particular plan coming up for approval also will have additional items of planned power outages that we now have to address. And you had those particular addendums put there in the safety plan in front of you with the report. And the other thing that's being brought up tonight also is COVID. So the state of California did recommend that we put in our COVID protocols related to what parents should do, what students should do, and what staff should do. So that'll be part of our safety plans going forward. And the additional item that the state of California this year would like us to make sure that parents are aware of is California law regarding safe storage of firearms. So this will be something that will be put up on the district website and also put in our safety plans. But if I may read this just first paragraph of the memorandum. The purpose of the memorandum is to inform and to remind parents and legal guardians of all students in the St. Helena Unified School District of their responsibilities for keeping firearms out of the hands of children as required by California law. There have been many news reports of children bringing firearms to school. In many instances, the child obtained the firearm from his or her home. These incidences can be easily prevented by storing firearms in a safe and secure manner, including keeping them locked up when they're not in use and storing them separately from the ammunition. I'm going to leave it at that, but this is a memorandum that they would like us to make sure that parents and guardians are aware of this year. And so I'm bringing the comprehensive safety plan up for approval for this year.
Ms. Madrigal, is there any public comment or was there any public comment submitted on this agenda item?
Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this agenda item? There is currently no public comment, and no public comment was submitted on this agenda item.
Board members, comments and questions?
I had one question on the checklist that's there now, and maybe it's just for a reference, but I was curious to know, do X amount of number, like if you check a certain percentage of those, does that necessitate like you have to shut down? Or is that just a guiding tool?
It's just a guiding tool, and I'd like to give credit, which I should have done right at the very beginning, to Greg Fetters. Mary Lou, Greg Fetters, and myself were looking at the planned power outage procedure, and Greg put a lot of effort into it in reference to editing it and bringing it up to speed, so a lot of kudos to him. But it's a reference guide.
Okay.
It's simply making sure that we're paying attention to all of these areas when we're making a call.
Great. That's what I thought. I mean, I love a checklist, so I was like, "That's great." But I wasn't sure if, there was a certain amount required to meet that necessitated a closure. So, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I would like to thank our district staff. I know Mr. Fetters and Ms. Allen, you worked, and everyone has worked hard on this, but I know it took a lot of time and a lot of effort, and there's a lot of really good work done to put this plan together.
Yes, thank you very much.
All of our administrators, each of our site supervisors as well. So, is there a motion to approve the district safety plan as it is presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Joe, would you like to cast a preferential vote?
Aye.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On to item 10E is our Up Valley Center's mid-year written report. I would like to remind the board that this is a written report, and I would like to remind our public that it's also a very helpful report to read through. Ms. Madrigal, is there any public comment on this agenda item?
Do any members of the public wish to comment on this agenda item? There is currently no public comment, and no public comment was submitted on this agenda item.
Trustees, comments or questions?
As I was reading through this, I just felt an immense amount of gratitude for having all of that here to serve our students, and that it's being utilized. The success they're having, and all the offerings. I mean, it's given everything that's transpired the past year as well, that we're very fortunate to have those caring adults in our community who are looking out for our students and our parents as well. So thank you, Up Valley Family Center, sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to also just thank the Family Center. They've obviously been doing a great immense amount of work in the community, and even more so this year with the pandemic and the fires. I think this is working. This is the most I've been referring my parents through the Preschool for All program and just other community members about the resources that are available to our families and obviously to our district as well. And then just on a personal level, just getting to work closer with a lot of the staff from the Family Center through the parent education program that they run for us for the Preschool for All, and then some work that I've been doing in Calistoga with providing scholarships, also working with them. So I've had an opportunity to work closer with Zach and a lot of the staff, and I just really appreciate the work. And then a lot, having nonprofits collaborate and work together, I think there's more work that we can accomplish together as we're serving a lot of times the same family. So I appreciate all their support and work in the community.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to echo both what Trustee Pelosi and Trustee Olguin said. They're doing amazing work as well for our students and our families.
So at this point in the meeting, I would like to apologize to everyone. I went about 15 minutes over my planned time for a break, and we will be taking, I will do a break until 7:40. Okay, thank you. We'll return in 10 minutes. So thank you for rejoining us. We will pick up with item 11A, which is review and consider approval of a 7th contract amendment for Christopher James Heller, Chief Academic and Human Resource Officer. I'd like to call on Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Yes, good evening. I'm going to speak to the content of the two items, A and B, generally first, with regards to the contract extensions, and then specifically about Mr. Christopher James Heller and make a recommendation, and then I'll speak following that one and a potential vote, Ms. Andrea Stubbs. So tonight's contracts are coming to you solely to extend the term of the contract for an additional year that will take them to June 30th of 2024. There are no changes in salary, benefits, or any other provisions within the contract, and as such, that allows the contract process to go forward without all of the oral recitals that we would be doing if there were any salary or fringe benefit changes. Mr. Christopher James Heller wears many hats in this district. Human Resources, Chief Academic Officer, COVID Testing and Vaccine Officer, sometimes Playground Monitor at the primary school and Lunch Helper, one of his favorite duties, Chief Negotiator. And over the summer, moving into this school year, he worked very closely with union leadership, and they truly created an elegant schedule that allowed us to not only return to in-person instruction, but return to in-person instruction for any student that wanted to be with us every day of the week. And you know that there are school districts that are still negotiating in-person instruction with their labor unions. And it's because of the relationships and the collaboration that Mr. Heller has developed with our bargaining units. Along with all of that, he manages employee complaints, staff complaints, parent complaints, staffing, hiring. He's a very busy, busy man. And the consistency of his leadership as the Chief Academic Human Resources Officer is important to our district. Leadership matters, and at this time I recommend that you approve the contract extension for 1 year to 2024.
Ms. Madrigal, is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item?
Do any members of the public wish to comment on this agenda item? There is currently no public comment, and there were no comments submitted on this agenda item.
Trustees, comments or questions?
I don't have any questions at all. My comment is I'm very happy to extend it for another year. So that's my comment. And thank you so much for everything. I'm glad that you provided that list then, Dr. Wilson, because it's very true.
Not
of all of our
exhaustive by any
employees,
means.
so.
I know, Mr. Heller, you don't really like us to sit here and say all these nice things about you, but they're warranted, and we thank you very much. And I'm in agreement with Trustee Kurd that I'm happy to extend this contract.
Yes, in agreement. I have this page of comments right here, and just kidding. No, I'm 100% in agreement to extending this contract, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. I too. We did leave off that you're the star of the staff basketball team, but so we do have to keep you. So is there a motion to approve the seventh contract amendment for Christopher James Heller, Chief Academic Human Resource Officer, as presented?
I'll make that motion, please.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Heller. And on to 11B. It would be the review and contract approval of an 8th contract amendment for Andrea Stubbs, Chief Business Official. I'd like to call on Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
And as I said earlier, the content of the contract extension is exactly the same as Mr. Heller's. It's taking it out to June 30th of 2024. Miss Andrea Stubbs also wears a number of hats. Most recently, she took on the transportation director hat. And with some research and some support from a consultant, has developed and created St. Helena's very own transportation department. She really likes using that radio and troubleshoots and has developed an effective program. And when we had more students riding, figured out how to add another route pretty quickly. In addition, I think you all know that she has a history of audits with 0 findings. That's really unheard of in school districts because it's such a complex budgeting process. And with regards to COVID-19, the work of Andy and her team in preparing the facilities, in preparing the personal safety equipment, in preparing food services and transportation, and along with her work with technology, making sure that every child had a hotspot that needed one over the summer, every child had what they needed. It is amazing the amount of work that is accomplished by Miss Andy Stubbs, and I would like to recommend at this time that you extend her contract to June 30th of 2024.
Ms. Madrigal, is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item?
Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this item? If so, please raise your virtual hand. There is currently no public comment, and there were no public comments submitted on this agenda item.
Trustees, comments and questions?
I say the same thing with Ms. Stubbs. Thank you very much for everything that you do. And I wrote down technology guru as well. I remember when we were struggling a little bit with that, and you stepped right in and got that going too. So thank you for everything. Thank you very much.
And we did learn something about the radio passion. So maybe you're going to get a ham operator license here in your next in your next role. But thank you very much, Andy. You always help us understand the complicated financials in such a digestible way. So I really appreciate all your efforts, and thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, I wanted to same thing, echo the same things that everyone said here at the table. Just your level of professionalism and adding clarity for us to understand the budgets. Many times it can be super complex, and it's just it's been amazing to see all the things that you've done. Obviously, when they're listed, we see all across the reports, but just to kind of put it all in one little paragraph says a lot about the work that both of you guys are doing to our district, and very grateful that we have the team that we have together here. So thank you.
I also just want to say thank you, Andy, and I think that our community needs to know how lucky we are to have the staff that we have at our administrative team. And maybe a lot of people don't know, I mean, Andy has this fantastic gift for finance, I will just say, put it at that. You have a gift for finance in presentations, in perfection. And you're also a former teacher, and what better person could we have at a school district in finance than someone who's been in the classroom? So thank you, thank you, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the 8th contract amendment for Ms. Andrea Stubbs, Chief Business Official, as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carried. Sorry, my microphone was off. 12A, presentation on the District of Choice program. I'd like to call on Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Yes, recently in early March, Andy Stubbs presented a study session to the governing board on enrollment options for the upcoming years. And during that presentation, a number of questions were asked by board members to staff regarding district of choice, enrollment options, and potential next steps. So the purpose of tonight's presentation is information only, and potentially more questions from the board, further direction. There will be no action taken this evening on any aspect of district of choice. Next slide, please. So as a reminder, you've seen this slide before. If you choose to withdraw from the district of choice program, there's a requirement that includes notifying the California Department of Education and the county office, and all of that has a timeline. And ultimately, you have to adopt a resolution. That's if you choose to discontinue in district of choice. If you choose to remain in district of choice, nothing would change. We would continue to move forward. Next slide. The information on this slide is in response to some of the questions around demographics at the study session. And this information can also be found in previous board meetings when we have given reports on district of choice. So we are required each year to report to you the number of students who are district of choice students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. The challenge with that number this year is that all students are receiving a free lunch, and so all of them are considered free and reduced at this time. So that's not an accurate depiction of what it may be on any other given year. The next chart shows you that we have a few more males than females in district of choice. The ethnicity is on the left-hand side, and that's a breakdown of the different ethnicity groups that are district of choice. And then you also asked about the number of students coming to us from each of the neighboring school districts. And so, for example, Calistoga Joint Unified, we have 46 students that are district of choice. Napa Valley Unified School District, we have 47 students. All of those students combined make up that number of 124. Next slide. You were also asked how many district of choice students we had in each specific grade level at this time. And so those numbers, and I'll just give you a moment to glance at that, depict the enrollment of DOC currently in our school based on grade level. Next slide. You also asked us to review the different enrollment options that we currently have within our school district and to clarify them. So as a reminder, the Allen Bill has two aspects. One would be that a school district would allow any employee working within the city of St. Helena. So a school district employee, somebody who perhaps works at the grocery store, the police department, who have children, could attend St. Helena schools. The second option is for children of employees that work for the school district only can attend our schools. And ultimately, it was determined when we updated our policy in the previous school years that we would move towards the Allen Bill for employees of the school district who work a minimum of 15 hours or more. So the Allen Bill is one way that students are enrolled in our district. And again, that's employees who work more than 15 hours. Next slide. District of choice is another option for enrollment, and we are a district of choice school district. It's an alternative interdistrict transfer program authorized by the California Department of Education. And this, you know, has an application period, it has a public lottery, and it has a selection process. The whole reason I believe that the governing board in 2011-12 moved to district of choice is because it's very objective. It is a blind lottery. It's all about filing the paperwork, being involved in the process, and that there is no bias applied to the process. There's a priority given to siblings who already have students in our district. There's a priority given to students who are eligible for free and reduced meals, and there's also a priority given to children of military personnel. Next slide. We also have a interdistrict agreement that is outside of the district of choice process, and it's very specific. The first reason that a child may be taken into our district is that we determined that that child is a victim of sexual assault or an act of bullying in their primary district of residence, and there's no other school for them to attend within that district. If we have a high school junior who is moving outside of the school district, they're allowed to complete their senior year so that they can continue with their graduation requirements and receive their diploma through our high school. If a child moves out of our attendance area within a school year, they are allowed to continue that current year. You might recall that in previous years, that was they were required to leave at the end of the attendance period, and as a board you wanted to ensure that they would have consistency within that school year. So students may if they move in December, for example, they are allowed to stay through the end of the school year in June. And then we do have a handful of students. There was a resolution 18-26 from the 2018-19 school year, where when we adopted new policies, there were some students that were impacted by that. And as a governing board, you directed staff to develop a resolution that would allow them to remain in our schools through their senior year in high school, and ask that they continue to apply for district of choice throughout those years. Next slide. And then we also have a Memorandum of Understanding. This is very specific to our special education services. We serve a handful of students in Howell Mountain and Calistoga. From one year to the next, that number of students may change or fluctuate, but we do have an MOU that allows students within the special education to attend our schools. Next slide. And Ms. Stubbs, I think you're going to take over at this point.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wilson. This table summarizes our current interdistrict transfer students by enrollment type. And so as you can see, for example, we've got 11 students in attendance under the Allen Bill, 124 students in attendance under District of Choice, and so on, for a total of 145 students in out-of-district attendance.
Ms. Stubbs, I want to remind you to say next slide for Ms. Madrigal.
Thank you. And then this slide here you saw during the board study session on February 25th. It summarizes our revenue associated with the program. We do receive approximately $115,000 for our District of Choice students who come to us from non-basic aid districts. And next slide. Some new information. If the district, the board had wanted us to confirm that if the district withdraws from the District of Choice program, the district will no longer receive any funding from the program for students who are allowed to continue through graduation. And in fact, the program, as you may recall, will, if it's not extended, it will sunset July 1st, 2023, and then be repealed as of January 1st, 2024. And the last year of funding would be during the 22-23 school year, unless it's extended. And then additionally, during the study session, we shared information about the Legislative Analyst Office's report about the District of Choice program, which was a requirement when the program was extended back in 2017. And we learned that the LAO's office was recommending additional funding to basic aid school districts taking students through the District of Choice program. And so the board had wanted to know, what does that extra funding look like? And so we did learn more about that, and it looks as if it'll be almost 3 times as much as what we're currently getting if the program gets extended and if the legislature follows the LAO's office recommendation in this matter. Next slide. So we've talked about this already. What is the future of DOC? Unless extended, it will become inoperative and be repealed during that 2023-24 school year. And the legislature would have to take action to extend the program. Our advisors from School Services of California have suggested that it would probably take a basic aid district with a real interest in this particular program to encourage a legislator to sponsor or author a bill to extend the program. And with everything going on right now, I don't know how likely that would be. And so truly the future of the DOC program, whether or not it'll be extended, is up in the air. Next slide, please. And so what are the options if DOC sunsets? We've talked about some of these points before. I think most notably a reminder that all current DOC students may remain in the district through graduation unless the DOC student disenrolls from the district. And then it'll be really important to consult with legal counsel to determine any proposed changes to our board policy and administrative regulations regarding interdistrict attendance. And then I'll turn it back to, next slide actually. Next one's mine. And so just circling back to what is the decision point for the board. And so the board would need to, if they chose to withdraw from the program prior to when it sunsets in 23-24, they would need to pass a resolution withdrawing by September 16th of next year, and then district staff would be responsible for notifying the CDE and following up with those administrative tasks. And then I'll turn it back to Dr. Wilson for the next slide.
Yes, so the Board of Trustees, if you are interested in withdrawing from the DOC program, then there is a date certain of that September 16th of 2021. That's if you're interested in withdrawing prior to the district of choice potentially sunsetting. If you are interested in continuing with the DOC program, there's nothing for you to take action on at any point in time. That would be giving staff direction that you are interested in continuing to move forward, and we would release the applications as we typically do in September and move forward with DOC. And just a reminder, if the timeline on that September date to withdraw is so that we can make sure that we take care of the necessary paperwork that we're responsible for that withdrawal. Next slide. A few other things for you to consider while you think about district of choice and enrollment options. Our current enrollment size of approximately 1,200 students does continue to support the smaller class size with a variety of choice. We are interested in those smaller class sizes as we are looking at academic recovery post-pandemic. The master schedules at RLS and the high school are truly built to optimize options for our students and the core offerings and electives. And while they do wax and wane in enrollment numbers, that has never been cause to eliminate a class, an elective or a class. Our interest is, and I know that our board members' interest is, in providing opportunities and options to engage our students in the different pathways that we have, and being involved in their education. And again, a reminder, there is not a minimum number of students required at our high school to be participating in athletics. Although if we only had 100 students at our high school, it would be hard, as Trustee Pelosi said to me, to field a baseball team. The goal always has been to maintain around that 1,200 enrollment total in the school district through my tenure, and that would be a continued goal. Next slide. At this time, we trust that we added more information to your consideration. We're happy to answer any questions, and discussion, and if there's any further direction that you would like to give us, we would be happy to move forward and provide more information for you as a board.
So at this time, I would like to alert all the trustees that we did receive a written public comment, and I want did everyone have a chance to read that written public comment?
Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Madrigal, is there any public comment through Zoom on this agenda item?
At this time, I would like to invite members of the public who wish to comment on this agenda item to hover towards the bottom of your screen and click on your virtual hand. President Haug, at this time, I have one public comment.
Go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea Tamani, and I'm a St. Helena native and a mom of 3, and a strong advocate for the DOC program. Our oldest daughter, Taylor, is currently in 1st grade at the St. Helena Primary School. Our daughter, Brooke, is number 2 on the DOC waitlist for kindergarten, and our son, Caden, is 1.5. My children are the reason I wanted to participate in this meeting today, as their education is our number 1 priority. When we began the DOC process with Taylor, we understood that once we were able to get one child in, the siblings were essentially assured a spot. We would simply have to follow the same process and apply. Here we are with Brooke in the number 2 spot with true uncertainty if she will be accepted. I've now learned that there are only 8 children on the kindergarten DOC list. Out of the 8 children, 4 of them are siblings of children who attend your district. I'm hoping you will consider at the very least adding these 4 siblings. I think we can all agree that the St. Helena High School or the St. Helena School District is unique in the opportunities that it offers our children. I've witnessed these opportunities firsthand by volunteering in Taylor's class and attending field trips. It is unparalleled and would be unfair for children within the same family to be divided. St. Helena is so much more to my family than just an amazing place to send our children to school. As I mentioned, I'm a St. Helena native, as is the rest of my family. My parents, siblings, and I all attended St. Helena School District from kindergarten through 12th grade. My dad owns FCB Construction Company in St. Helena. I'm an account manager for Encore Glass and sell wine bottles to many of the wineries in our community. My husband, Jason Tamani, is a firefighter for both Calistoga and St. Helena Fire Departments. Jason and I also both coach for Little League and rec sports. We have coached soccer, t-ball, coach pitch, and now softball. We participate in this community, and we are working members. I am pleading you to continue the DOC program or offer a program that would replace it so that my daughter Brooke and son Caden can join their older sibling in the district. This decision is life-changing for our families and truly devastating should the DOC program be removed and my children not be able to attend the same schools. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak and your consideration.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment, Ms. Madrigal?
Are there additional members of the public who wish to comment on this agenda item? President Haug, there's no additional public comment.
So, trustees, I would like to just preface opening this up to discussion. I want to just make it clear to the public that District of Choice is continuing for the next school year. We have not, there is some confusion, and I want to point out there is some confusion in the community. We are not doing away with District of Choice for the next school year. At the same time, we do not know if District of Choice will continue in the state of California after 2024. So we're in a situation where we might want to give direction that the district look into legal options for a program to be created should DOC go away as a result of the legislative action not being taken. So, so we have a choice to either terminate district of choice in the 22-23 school year. We have the choice to let district of choice continue as is, but since we don't really know what's happening legislatively, I would propose that we give the staff direction. If we continue with district of choice, we have to at least prepare with our legal counsel a program that would replace district of choice should district of choice go away. That would be something I would like to open up for discussion. We have a lot of different options, and at this point I'd like to hear everyone's comments and ideas.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I'm actually one of the lead on district of choice as far as getting it to our district. So, and when we were considering district of choice in 2011, it was for the reasons that Dr. Wilson stated. It was because of the no bias, the lottery system. There was money attached at that time. There was more money attached, so that was actually very enticing. I believe it was 75% of the state revenue of the school district at that time, and now it's 25%. So that's a huge loss to our district. There's no doubt about that. We have had through time. We have had district of choice. We have had times where we needed to really look at it and change some policies just because of some equity issues and things. And it does take staff time. I mean, I know that it does take a lot of staff time, just the administrative work of it, and if there's anything that we want to change kind of policy-wise within district of choice. It's kind of just to reiterate, so we have, as far as timing, our 2021-22, we're done with that. We've done our lottery. Spots have been made for us, or either a wait list or spots for students. And then so our next one and our last one will be next year, that's for 22-23. Correct? Yes. So next year, if we decide to continue to do this, we would have one more lottery in January. The application is November, lottery in January, and then that would be it as far as that. And then if it sunsets, district of choice is over. It's done. And I have to say that I can't imagine that there's going to be someone who's going to author a bill for this just because of everything that we've gone, everything else that's going on in our state right now. And I do want to say that what some of our community members might not know is that our students from Howell Mountain and from Pope Valley, they also come to our school without funding starting in 9th grade. So just from 9th grade to 12th grade, there's no funding for those students either. We did try to do some legislation on that, try to change that as well through the state. And that took us, we started that in, I would say probably 2011. And it took until probably about 2013 to hear that we were a trailer bill, and it didn't even get to the voting table at all. So this is the kind of stuff that they actually don't want to. They don't really. It's not that important to legislators. So I know that I'm rambling on about this. And another thing that I've been considering is like at this point right now, our census right now, we have 1,105 students right now. And it sounds like 1,200 is something that we would like to consider in kind of keeping our ADA at 1,200, just to keep our classes to what we're maintaining right now. Certainly that will go down. So we're actually lower than we are than the 1,200 that we've had in the past. To me, I feel like we should do the one more year of district of choice. And during that time, we'll have time to be able to talk more about some kind of interdistrict, the interdistrict agreement, and modify it so that it does include kind of the same type of procedures and protocols that the district of choice has. The filling, application, lottery, non-bias. So that's kind of what I'm thinking as far as that, because at some point we are going to want to let students in. I mean, we can't say, oh, we're never going to let another student in to our district. I mean, that just is not going to happen. And we always need a way to be able to do that. So it would give us the time to be able to kind of implement a new modification of the interdistrict agreement. And so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that you touched on what I was trying to make clear, and I want to give everyone a chance to speak. I don't want to speak over, but I completely agree with Jeannie, because I also experienced the whole process of trying to move something through the legislature, and just knowing what's happening in our state right now, and reading the material on district of choice, I just don't think that any legislature is going to pick up this bill to renew it. It's just knowing that we had lobbyists working on our behalf throughout the trailer bill that we were trying to get put on. It's just not something that we should count on. So we have to accept that reality, and I think we have to kind of think of how we want to transition into the future of allowing students into the district. I think that that's just the prudent way to move forward. And I'd like to hear from the rest of the board now as well. I know that this is maybe not, it wasn't as clear to some of our community members, these issues, but I want to make it clear and talk it out among ourselves so that everyone understands that it's the state DOC program that is ending, and we have to figure something out, and it's going to take time for us to speak to legal counsel to create a program to replace it. And we have to start that process now, because it takes a lot of time to put something together.
Yeah, I think this is definitely helpful. Obviously, with the special meeting that we had, it was, we were presented certain portions of the topic, and I think just hearing Jeannie speak about kind of the history of it, as far as a new board member, I came in 2018 or 19, so it was already something that was established. So I didn't really know what the kind of history of it was, and obviously the goal was to enroll students from the outside, but I think just having this a lot of these questions answered, and then hearing the fellow trustees that have been on the board longer than I have makes a little bit more sense as far as the program and kind of where it's going. I think that for me, obviously the small class size is important, not just to myself, but I think to the board and to our staff and community. And so I think if we know that the kind of have a number in place that we know is where we want our classes to be, that I think we can obviously continue to work with the cap system that we have in place to make sure that that we can have that number of students. Obviously, the low enrollment, how it's been projected, I just feel that now that if we were to discontinue the DOC, we'd kind of close the door on that, and if we have low enrollment, we wouldn't have any other means to bring in students from the outside district. So I think that's one of the reasons right there. And then another one was with the DOC siblings, was just giving parents an opportunity. I know that as a parent, and using my parent hat, if I were in that situation, I would want an opportunity at least to be in the program and be in the lottery. Obviously there's no guarantee, and it's all dependent on our enrollment, but I think that as a parent I would want that opportunity to at least have that chance. So if we were to discontinue it, then obviously they would have no opportunity. So I think right now, listening to Jeannie kind of just clarified a lot of things that, like I said, as far as the past and why it was put into place. One thing that I would like to see that would be helpful for me, and just this is, I don't know for other trustees, but just seeing the number of new students that have enrolled just like in the last couple of years and this year, like new students, because we have I know there's 124 within those classes, but just kind of seeing in the year like how many actual new DOC students enrolled would be helpful to me, just to kind of know what the progression has been as far as with the caps and everything. So if that's something that I think would be helpful.
Just to clarify, Julio, you mean how many new DOC students come in each year?
Yes.
How many?
Yeah. So to kind of see, because when you see the 124, you don't know if the student has been here since kindergarten or they just entered like in 4th grade. So just to kind of see how many new students are coming in just the last couple of years and this year would be helpful, just to kind of see what how it's progressed or decreased, and especially with the caps in place. I know that in the last couple of years it seems like they've been set lower, so that would be helpful for me.
I also, thank you. Trustee Kerr, thank you for the history and the background, because that is important for people to know, whether on the dais or in the community. And thank you very much for clarifying some of that misinformation that was out there as well. I will say that I'm in alignment with Trustee Kerr's thinking that I'd like to see it through to our commitment of the 22-23 period, but I would also like to give direction that we start to work on creating a new policy that folds in aspects of what some of the DOC characteristics are, so that we can keep our options for enrollment for students to come to our schools. And I mean, I will concur with a lot that's been said, Sarah, and I will pipe in if something else comes up, but that's the gist of my feeling.
Trustee Minter?
I agree with what pretty much everyone has said. I think that it's important that we continue the program for as long as is feasible, and that we have backups in place so that if and when there is a transition that's needed, we have the ability to perform that transition without any delays or like we miss a year or something.
So Joe? Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
If I may, I'm going to quote Trustee Pelosi when I say ditto to what the rest of the board has said. I do have one clarifying question about the Allen Bill on slide 5. The last sentence, prior to seeking enrollment under the Allen Bill, students are encouraged to apply for enrollment through district of choice transfer. I'm just wondering what the thought process is behind that.
Sure, Mr. Brody. If I could answer that question. In the event that a child comes to school with us and their parent is an employee, and for whatever reason, resignation, retirement, that employee is no longer with us, then that child no longer has the rights to stay in our schools under the Allen Bill. And so if the parent employee applies for a district of choice and that child is accepted into district of choice, they could discontinue employment with us and the child could remain through their senior year.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have just one clarifying.
Yes, Trustee Kerr.
And when I was talking about the difference between what our enrollment is now at 1,105 and the kind of the 200 mark, I just want to say that I'm not in favor of bringing that amount up at these next couple of years by any means, because we need to keep our class sizes low right now through the pandemic part. So I'm very much in support of the caps that we have as of right now. So by me saying that, it wasn't me saying I want to start, bringing in, 85 students at this point, opening, having higher caps right now, because we need to keep our class sizes as low as we possibly can during this time.
Yeah,
with the students that we have.
And our cap sizes are set based on the class sizes for social distancing that are still in place. And the social distancing hasn't been lifted by the health department, and we have no idea when that will be lifted.
Exactly.
And so we do have those caps in place as a result of the social distancing plan that we submitted to the county health department. So that we can't change that plan. That plan was approved, and until the situation changes where we no longer have to follow that plan, which we do not know when that will be, by any means, we cannot predict that. So the caps do remain in place. I'm saying this over and over more for our community members that are hearing this right now, if any are listening. The caps are there because of the pandemic and our staffing ability and our rooms that we have available. We have every single room being utilized by a classroom on all 4 of our campuses basically right now. Whereas in the past, we might have had a room empty or a spare room that could have been used for something else. We have basically classes in every single room, to include music rooms being turned into regular classrooms.
Correct.
So what I heard from the trustees is that we will continue with the district of choice until it sunsets. And at the same time, we're asking the district to begin speaking to legal counsel at some point to prepare a transition program. Is that the direction that I'm hearing from everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is not going to be something that we're voting on. We're just, because we're not leaving the district of choice. We did not vote on it. I'm saying this more for our community to understand and hear. We are continuing with the district of choice. It is unlikely that that it will be renewed by the state legislature, and we are asking the administration to begin speaking to legal counsel with respect to a replacement program.
Thank you, President Haug. Understood. What I would like to suggest is at some point in the future, legal counsel and your superintendent would conduct a study session so that we could hear what parameters you would want to have involved in an updated policy that would, at some point at the time of sunset, would replace the district of choice transfer policy. Okay. And in response to Trustee Ogeen's question with regards to annual DOC students, each year for the last number of years, I have given you a report either in October or in November. So, for example, in November of 2020, I updated you on DOC. And for this school year, we received 94 applications. And for the current school year, 32 students were granted enrollment spots. Now, I can't guarantee that all 32 took those spots, but they were granted those spots. So that information can be found in the October-November agendas for the last number of years.
And one more thing, President Haug, that I was thinking of and that I want to share with you as well, is I also realize that communities actually really, district of choice is beneficial to communities. And I really think by us staying within district of choice and not withdrawing at this time, it might, if it does go to legislator, it might make the case even stronger as far as that, there's this many district of choice districts, and because if we all start falling off, then they're going to be like, okay, no one wants it anyway, so let's just get rid of it, just boot it out. without much conversation about it. And if that's the case, and it does go through legislature, and it does to keep going with it, with additional funding, then that's a different conversation then too. So, and that's going to be in another couple of years. So we can always wishful think too.
Yeah. So the LAO office did recommend renewing it. That does not mean that anyone's going to sponsor the bill. So that's where we're at. That's
correct.
Explaining the civics of our state to any parents out there that are wondering how it works. It doesn't matter whether it's recommended or not. It doesn't matter. It just matters whether it gets sponsored by a legislator. So on to item 12B. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that everyone said everything they wanted to say. Okay? Yes. Okay. On to item 12B, review and consider approval of the 2021 second interim report. I'd like to call on Miss Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. And the full presentation is included in the agenda item, which includes all the deep detail about the budget. However, I've started with these interim reports to select kind of a focus for each time just to make it a little bit more digestible. And so this evening we'll take a look at some revenue updates. Next slide. And so we learned in the spring that because of the pandemic, we should very likely begin planning for 0% property tax growth in 2021-22 and 2022-23, and possibly beyond. And so to that end, the board approved in December a first interim report for this year reflecting that in the multi-year projection. Next slide. And so this is a snippet of the multi-year projection from the first interim report. And as you can see, with a 0% property tax growth showing in 21-22 and 22-23, we also wind up with a projected deficit to the fund balance of almost $500,000 in 21-22 and close to $1.7 million in 22-23, if we're just considering the deficit to the unrestricted side of the house. Yet at the first interim report, we projected that we would be able to meet our minimum reserve requirements and would have a balanced budget in the current year in 2021. Next slide. And so Napa County CBOs met with representatives from the Napa County Office of Education and the Napa County Assessor's Office to receive an update on the impact of both the wildfires and the pandemic on property taxes. And as a result, we were encouraged to continue doing that very fiscally prudent budgeting of 0% growth in 21-22 and 22-23. Next slide. Napa County Office of Education provided local school districts with a memo to that effect, outlining some of the reasons for being concerned with assessed property growth. First of all, decreases in assessed values due to the wildfires, and then anticipated declines in the assessed value of some local business properties, and then the fact that the rebound that we saw from downward assessments earlier from the Great Recession have largely been eliminated at this point. So those three factors combined have resulted in this 0% projection that the County Treasurer's Office is recommending. The assessor, however, does not recommend budgeting for a decrease in property tax revenue because what's helping to offset that would be residential sales within Napa County. And I believe there's been some news articles published recently stating that there's been quite a bit of an increase in residential sales. Next slide. And so these are just the last couple of bullet points from the excerpt of the memo that reiterate the 0% property tax growth budgeting. And next slide. And so our multi-year projection at second interim looks very similar to the one that you saw for first interim. We do see more of a surplus to the fund balance in current year, and that's because as the school year is coming to a close, we can start to reduce some of our budgets based on actual expenses this year. And then in 21-22, we see a little bit more of a deficit, a little bit over $500,000, and then a little bit more of a deficit in 22-23, about a $20,000 difference in each of those years compared with first interim, meaning that the deficit has grown by about that much. And that is the net impact of some account review between the first interim and now. Most notably, what I did was I increased the contribution to food services by about $60,000, recognizing the additional labors, additional labor hours over the year, additional meals served. And we're still reviewing our budget to see the impact of the additional revenue that we'll be receiving with all those federal waivers. We've been able to provide more free meals, and then we get more reimbursement for that. And then additionally, the state and the feds are giving us 75 cents per meal for the period of March through August 2020. And so I don't think that we'll need that full $60,000, but I put it in there as a placeholder. And still, at the second interim, we're still able to meet our reserve requirements. And next slide. So speaking a little bit about some of the governor's proposals for 2021-22, we've talked about some of these items during the study session, certainly. We already addressed the additional meal reimbursement. The governor's proposing several new pots of money to support school districts through and after the pandemic. And so the first three, the educator professional development, mental health programs, the school climate surveys, we're not seeing much yet about how much school districts will receive for those dollars. But these will be restricted, probably one-time pots of money that will definitely have some very clear strings attached to how they can be spent. And then the last three, we do see some dollar amounts that are estimates for our school district. Another round of the federal stimulus funding of approximately $847,000, and that's very flexible. And then the expanded learning time and academic intervention grants, and also the reopening schools grant. And the last two combined, we will have to have the board approve by June 1st a special plan outlining how we intend to spend that money. And so we'll involve stakeholders in developing that plan. And with a reopening schools grant, you see there we have an estimate of almost $508,000. And that estimate was based on the governor's proposal back in January when he was proposing $450 per ADA. And then now, in working with the legislature, and they have struck a deal, and the end result is that we're receiving a certain percentage share against our LCFF entitlement. So it's a different calculation, and that calculation has resulted in less revenue for us for the reopening schools of about $378,000 is the latest estimate. So none of the items that you see there are currently in the budget or in the multi-year projection that you saw, because I typically don't budget that revenue until at least the June original budget for the following year, because then we've seen the May revise, and so we feel more solid about those figures, because we're still at that stage where the governor has made his proposals, and the legislators come back with theirs, and then it's a little bit too soon to put that final deal into the budget. And next slide. And so with that, I would entertain any questions and recommend that the board consider approval of the 2020-21 second interim report.
Thank you, Andy. Is there anyone present, Ms. Madrigal, who would like to publicly comment on this agenda item? Or were there any comments submitted by the public?
There were no written comments submitted by the public. If any members who are viewing now care to comment on this item, please raise your virtual hand. There's no public comment.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments by the board members?
I have a quick question, Andy, and you might not be able to answer it, but something so kind of keep in the back of your mind. So as far as the federal stimulus funding and the expanded learning time, those the income coming in, does that come in one lump sum then, each one of them? Or is it staggered kind of through the year?
I believe the cash is staggered. For example, the latest that I read, we still weren't certain when the round 2 of the federal ESSER dollars, that large pot, I think was at the 846.
846, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm reading is we're still not quite certain if all that is going to come this year or next year.
Okay, but it'll come out as whatever the amount is. 845,000 will come to us by like $845,000.
Yes.
Okay,
Eventually, we'll receive the cash,
Okay.
probably in a couple of different allocations, and then I believe that both of those pots of money we will have until September 30th or 2022. So about a
22.
year to spend the dollars.
Okay.
And the ESSER dollars are very flexible. And I believe the reopening grant will be a little bit flexible too. The least flexible will be the expanded learning grant. There will be some more strings to that, but still enough flexibility that we should be able to do some good work with that.
Okay.
To support students and to perhaps address a portion of the structural deficit that you saw there for 21-22.
Right. And then do you with this expanded learning time, so this is the one where we'll need to have a plan then for that one. Is that correct?
Yes, and what I read most recently today, the plan will actually need to address both the expanded learning grant and the reopening dollars. Whereas before, from what I was reading, it appeared that the plan would only have to cover the expanded learning grant. So there's the two grant. There's the in-person instruction one, or they were calling it the reopening grant, and then there's also the expanded learning grant.
Right. And then do you have to show that? Do you have to report out how it was spent then?
Yes.
And that would be what we approve.
Yes, so the board would approve a plan by June 1st, and then in subsequent months, we would be submitting expenditure reports.
Okay, great, thank you.
Good, she asked all my questions.
Anyone? Julio, please. Go ahead, Forrest.
Is the significant difference between the 22-23 school year and the other years you showed because of the stimulus money, or are there other large factors in play?
No, that's a good question, and but any of the new dollars that you saw in that summary sheet are not included in the multi-year projection. So it is other factors in play, mainly the compounding of expenses, increased cost for labor, and so forth. Yes.
Any further questions? Thank you for, and then I'd just like to say this was presented also to the Budget Operations Committee, and we got a thorough explanation there. Jeannie, can you remember any other highlights that you want to remember from that meeting that we want to bring up here?
Well, I think that there was comments that possibly the money that's coming in for the stimulus money that's coming in could possibly be used, to kind of take care of the structural deficits that we have. But just because of timing and things, and just because of more the restrictiveness of those, we're not looking at that to change the structural deficit. Is that correct?
Yeah,
what I'm saying,
I think
Andy?
Correct. Yes,
Yeah,
it may help with a portion.
That was a perception by some of the newer committee members that thought that we could just move that pot of money over to help
just
our
to
deficit.
take care of that,
But those are allocated funds that we can't really use and restricted.
Correct, because not only are there are some restrictions to them, but they're also one-time in nature, and so they wouldn't, while they might help with the deficit in 1 year, especially 21-22, because that would be the year that we would probably have to spend them all by. It wouldn't help. It would just be a temporary Band-Aid. It wouldn't help with the ongoing projected deficit.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion to approve the 2021 second interim report as presented?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Joe, would you like to cast a preferential vote?
Aye.
Is there a second motion?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, we have item 12C. It's the Information Technology Program update. I'd like to remind the board that it is a written report. And Ms. Madrigal, is there any public comment on this agenda item?
Are there any members of the public who care to comment on this agenda item? There is currently no public comment, and there was no public comment submitted.
And Andy submitted this report. Thank you again, Ms. Stubbs. Trustees, do you have any comments or questions?
Just too bad that it's at the end of the long board meeting, but yeah, definitely a shout out to the tech team. I know Derek's back there. Just the work that they've done, not just in this last year, but prior to that, just to get our board on our district in that direction, for obviously, more involvement with technology, but just the work that they've done this past year to keep our kids in school and our teachers able to teach has been very critical, and I want to say thank you to the entire team.
I'd say ditto. Thank you, Julio.
And always being ahead of the curve on everything too. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I mean, it doesn't, sometimes we don't even know that there's a problem, and we are solving it before the problem is there. So thank you, the challenges and things. So thank you.
And I had to look up what Google Voice was because that was new to me. So.
Okay, on to item 12D. This is the first board review of the 2021-2022 budget assumptions. I'd like to call on Ms. Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. And the Business Operations Committee was able to review these last night. And all of the changes that you see are highlighted in yellow, and those are changes compared with the current year budget assumptions. And so there's quite a few. I didn't highlight the change to the year, and there's quite a few small highlighted sections where dollars have changed somewhat. I'm not going to go through all those, but I do have a few that I just want to cover. And so the first one would be on page 1. And that would be the property tax item that we've been talking about. So I just reflected in these budget assumptions that we would be budgeting 0% property tax growth. And then the next one that I'd like to address would be on page 3. And that would be the ESSER Round 2 funding that we talked about during the second interim report, and I just referenced that there. And at the time of this writing, it was uncertain which fiscal year we'd be receiving the dollars in. It's looking now like we are perhaps going to get an allocation this spring for those dollars. And then the third thing I'd like to talk about would be a couple of paragraphs down there on page 3, and other, so a little bit farther up, Erica, if you can. And that would be a note referencing the expanded learning time and academic intervention grant. And then a little farther down on that same page, supporting student mental health has long been a major priority of the board. And to that end, we've had a long-standing contract with the Up Valley Family Center. And we've been able to use restricted dollars to cover most of those costs, but we have had to make a contribution from the unrestricted general fund to cover that. And in 21-22, we're estimating that to be approximately $30,395. And we will be meeting with Up Valley staff to review this contract for next year and determine if the current estimated amount of $120,000, I believe, on page 4, top of page 4, is still accurate. And then we'll bring that MOU back to the board for approval probably in May or June. And then the next item that I'd like to highlight is on page 7. And that would be under summer school. We talked a little bit earlier this evening about plans for summer school, and I did increase just our regular budget from about $85,000 to $90,000 for summer school from the unrestricted side of the house. However, I recognize that we may be doing some additional programming and so forth this summer, and so that would be an ideal opportunity to use those expanded learning time and academic intervention grants. And in fact, it may be appropriate to, if allowable, and we'll be reviewing the rules, to use those one-time dollars for our regular summer school expenses, which would then help to offset the deficit by that portion in 21-22. And so that's an illustration of how we can possibly use some of these one-time restricted dollars to help with next year's projected deficit, if we do have one, if property taxes do not increase. And so I'll be working very closely with the curriculum department to develop that plan. And then the next item I'd like to bring to the board's attention is at the bottom of page 7, and that would be the budget assumption for maintenance and deferred maintenance programs. And I reference in there that freezing of the contribution to Fund 14 to deferred maintenance due to our projected issue with property tax growth. And so the multi-year projections that you saw during the first interim and the second interim report include that temporary freeze. The next item I'd like to bring to the board's attention is on page 8. And it's a highlighted section right about in the middle of the page there, referencing the contribution also to Fund 40. So the board over the past few years has authorized a contribution to Fund 40 to set aside savings for pool liner and the turf field and so forth and other facilities projects. And so again, that's part of our budget. Our dynamic deficit budget mitigation plan that we've been working on is temporarily freezing those contributions to help offset any deficits. So if we still had those in the budget, the deficit that you saw would be bigger. However, what we're doing is identifying just those most key facilities projects coming up for the spring and summer that are needed for safety and things of that nature. And then we're using our current facilities budgets without having to dip into any of our facilities reserves to cover those items. And the Business Operations Committee heard a little bit about that last night. The next thing that I would like to talk about is our technology budget. You'll see a little bit later on this evening that under contracts over $25,000, we are going to be purchasing next year's device refresh in current year using current year dollars, which means that we're kind of doubling up this year. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but so we may not need that full $800,000 next year because we won't be having to purchase next year's devices using next year's dollars. However, on page 9 at the very top, I highlighted a note about our hotspots. We've purchased 200 hotspot devices and the licenses to go with them for this year to assist students during the pandemic. And I anticipate that we've created kind of a new normal of supporting students at home so that there's more equity around having access at home. And so I anticipate that we're going to want to continue to provide and have on hand, regardless of when we're able to go back to full in-person instruction, some amount of hotspots and licenses to support students in the home. And then also on page 9, another note to go over a little bit farther down, thank you, would be the transition program that Mr. Heller was talking about and Mr. Joy was describing earlier this evening. And so what we've done here is we've established a modest budget of about $20,000 to cover kind of those startup costs, some professional development and so forth. And then we'll be developing the program moving forward, and there may be an MOU with Calistoga at a certain point that would help to offset some costs in the future. I believe I just have a couple additional notes to go over with the board. On page 10, at the very top, we reference our transportation program. The board approved a budget of $505,000 during the January board meeting for our transportation program for next year, so that's reflected in our assumptions. And then also we do have the Kaiser grant that the board may recall from that we received in 18-19 in the amount of $381,000 that we've been using to support our wellness grants and wellness budgets across the district. And over the past couple of years, we haven't spent all those dollars, so we will be revisiting those and determining what would be the best purpose for those monies, and it could be that we're using those to carry out that wellness program even farther out than we had anticipated originally. So we'll be bringing back some additional information about that to the board at a later time. And that was the last note that I wanted to review with the board. These will come back to the Business Operations Committee for a second review, and again to the board for a second review in April or in May.
Ms. Madrigal, is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item?
There was no public comment submitted in writing, and there is currently no public comment.
Trustees, questions and comments?
Highlights, as always.
So,
Absolutely.
and these two questions don't have to be answered now. I'm on the pool liner. I believe that, so we've replaced it now, we've replaced it early, and we were looking to replace it at, I think it was 15 years or 20, I mean, how many years from now was it looking at being replaced? And do you know that by any chance? Or
If I recall, it's at least 10 years. It's either 10 or 15 years that we'll have on this. What happened was we had determined, while it was still under warranty, that there was some bubbling and so forth, and we were able to replace it now under warranty, but we were assured that now it would last 10 to 15 years. And so we've covered all those costs this year, so we won't need that for some time, which is good.
And so that it basically was replaced already for a fraction of what it would normally have costed.
Correct, yes.
And then the other question I had was with respect to the Kaiser grant, were those monies kind of not spent because of the pandemic this year, or?
That was definitely it for this past year, and then even in prior years too. Each of our school sites did a great job with their wellness goals, and they did spend some of those dollars, but not the full amount that was allocated. And also, the Kaiser grant was used to support field trips and the Yosemite trip and those kinds of things. And so that's why we're seeing a little bit left over that unspent from prior years, and then quite a bit that wasn't spent last year. So it'll be good to reevaluate those dollars and do a new plan for the subsequent years.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay. And then we have item 12E, that is approval of contracts over $25,000. Miss Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. And the first contract that you see there is for some new weed abatement equipment, which is part of the district's overall grounds management program. And this will help our staff to control the weeds better using a combination of non-toxic ingredients and heat. We do have enough in our current capital outlay budget to cover this expense without having to use reserves. And then the next 3 contracts with Dell are for Chromebooks, laptops, and configuration services as part of our annual device refresh program. We did chat a little bit about this during the budget assumption piece. I do want to mention to the board that there is a typo in the Chromebook item. I referenced their 3rd and 5th graders. It should actually say 3rd and 6th graders. And so I'd like to thank one of the members of my team for pointing that out to me. Our incoming 3rd and 6th graders each year receive new Chromebooks, and our incoming 9th graders each year receive new laptops. And then we don't have to go out to bid on these items because we're able to purchase them under a piggyback contract through the state. And I also mentioned before that with regard to funding, we're doubling up on these refresh purchases to ensure that we can get the equipment timely, because there's been some severe delivery delays during the pandemic. And so that means that we're going to have to increase our technology budget by a net $35,000 approximately. However, we will be able to do some budget transfers from other account codes within the general fund unrestricted budget, so it won't result in a decrease to the fund balance, if that makes sense. Because of where we're at this time of the year, I reviewed our supplies and materials and equipment budgets and determined that we can shift some budget over to the technology to cover these, so that we won't have to be dipping into reserves to do this extra refresh purchase. And then the final contract this evening is with CDWG for some network infrastructure equipment, which we want to purchase under the E-rate grant program. And that will give us a 70% discount on purchasing this equipment. So it's definitely a good move. And we do work with an outside E-rate consultant that helped us to go out to bid for these items and helped us to evaluate the quality of the responses. And we would be using Measure B bond proceeds for that expense. With that, I would ask the board to consider approval of the contracts over $25,000.
Ms. Madrigal, is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on these agenda items, or this agenda item, or was there a public comment submitted?
There was no public comment submitted, and there's no public comment now.
Trustees, comments or questions?
I just want to say that Turf Star thing is really cool.
Yeah.
And I noticed too, and kind of doing some research, because it's my property management brain, I was like, what is this all about? But it also it will do a good sanitation on equipment as well, it said. So that's a double bonus, I thought, aside from killing weeds. So that's great.
And it's in conformity with our green initiative.
Yes,
so that's really, thank you for finding that. Is there a motion to approve contracts over $25,000 as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Would you like to cast a preferential vote?
Aye.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. I'm on to item 13A, board-related items. This is a request for adoption of resolution of 20-18, Week of the Volunteer. I'd like to call on Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Thank you. The very best for last. Typically, at this time of the school year, I would be reporting to you the thousands of hours that our parents dedicate to our schools in the classroom, on field trips, special projects, just countless activities that our parents in this community donate to our schools in the form of volunteering. I'd like to note that this year they were voluntold to be teachers at home. And they didn't have a choice, and yet they did. and I celebrate them. I celebrate from March 16th until November 2nd, when our students came back to us in person. In addition to the voluntary behaviors of our parents at home, we do have some other active volunteers going on within our community. A Ballet Family volunteer coordinator program, volunteering program for our primary and elementary students is up and running, and one of our board members serves as a volunteer in that program. And I thank all of the volunteers that are serving students and mentoring students virtually. In addition, our parent groups and our foundation, as you heard tonight, they've been very busy, and they've been working diligently to take care of our students and our teachers, our employees. So there is lots of volunteering going on this year. It is a little bit different than it typically looks like. I think probably our parent volunteers would rather volunteer in the classroom than volunteer at home. And we look forward to a time when we can invite them and open our doors back up and bring them into our schools. I do recommend that you adopt this resolution and celebrate and appreciate all of the volunteers for our children, for our school district, and for this entire community.
So normally at this time, I would ask a board member to read the resolution. I didn't forewarn any of you. I didn't pre-plan this one. Is there anyone who would like to read the resolution, or I will read it if I have no volunteers? Because that's on me.
I'm happy to read it if you want me to.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that.
Okay. A resolution of the Governing Board of the St. Helena Unified School District, Resolution number 20-18, School Volunteer Appreciation Week 2021. Whereas School Volunteer Week offers the opportunity to recognize and to thank school volunteers who contribute unselfishly to the success of the St. Helena Unified School District students, teaching and support staff, and the goals of publication. And whereas parental and community involvement is a significant factor in the quality of our schools and the success of our students. And whereas we appreciate the dedicated volunteers who give their time and talent to assist professional educators and support staff. And whereas volunteers reflect the highest values of our society and become role models for students by demonstrating an interest in education. And whereas volunteers are called upon to assist teachers and staff with the day-to-day activities involved in providing a quality education for our students and are an important part of a team that strives to ensure that each and every one of our students succeeds. And whereas it is fitting to support the goals of this observance, as when parents, schools, and communities work together in preparing today's students for tomorrow's world, therefore, be it resolved that the Governing Board of the St. Helena Unified School District recognize the week of April 18th through April 24th, 2021 as School Volunteer Week. I don't think I need to read that last.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Trustee Pelosi. Ms. Madrigal, is there any public comment on this agenda item?
There is no public comment.
Trustees, do you have any questions or comments?
So my comment is thank you, as always, to all of our entire community for everything that they do for us and our volunteers.
I just want to specifically highlight the Family Center volunteer program that's being virtually run this year. It's really amazing that community members have even gone out of their way to learn a lot of technology in order to be effective volunteers, and they all took it's basically a certification type class in how to effectively volunteer virtually during the pandemic. So. And thank you to the Family Center for organizing those volunteers. Do I have a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 20-18, Week of the Volunteer, as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Joe, would you like to cast your preferential vote?
Aye.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. On to item 14A, future agenda items. Our upcoming board meeting is going to be April 15th. Dr. Wilson, would you like to point anything out that you might want to highlight?
No.
Board members, any comments or questions on the upcoming board meeting on April 15th on the agenda items there? No. Okay. Thank you. And we're moving to item 15A. Is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Joe, would you like to does he get to cast a preferential vote? You do.
That would be a vote in the affirmative.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.